Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for another episode of SLMA Radio. If it has to do with sales lead management or sales lead marketing, it probably starts here with the SLMA Radio Show. Today, we've got a lively conference call going on with the founder, Jim Overmaier, and some other guests. So without further ado, let's bring him in and get started. Hey, Jim.
Hello, Paul. Thank you. This is Paul Roberts that you've just heard. He's produced 523 shows on SLMA and several thousand on other programs on the Funnel Radio channel. Today's program is 6 ways to make email work smarter for marketing and sales. Now, let's face it, everybody in marketing and sales agrees on 3 things about email. It is indispensable, inexpensive as a promotional tool, and hugely inefficient unless used right. In this episode of SLMA Radio, we interview Nick Lissette, CEO of Blackpool, and we discuss how marketing and sales can use email more efficiently. Nick is the founder and chief technology officer of Blackpool Mail, with a decade of experience in business email. Nick is an entrepreneur with a keen knack of identifying emerging technologies and markets. He has won numerous awards and international recognition for his efforts in the global anti-spam community. His SaaS cloud email security company was at the forefront of the cloud managed service revolution in 2007. This anti-spam company grew into a joint venture organization called Slam Dunk, which was successfully sold in 2012 as a silver cloud mail company. Blackpool was founded in 2014 as a software as a service product that helps companies to increase their brand and grow revenues. Blackpool has been engineered to integrate with Microsoft as well as G Suite and on-premise email systems. It is a true force multiplier. Nick, welcome.
Jim, thank you very much for having me.
Now, I've got a question before we get started here. It's kind of interesting if I hope our audience doesn't mind a little detour here, but are you a relative of Jaeger Lissette, who had 55 tries in one season in rugby? Is that someone you know?
Yeah, that's my son. So he single-handedly in a season got more tries than I think it took me a decade to accumulate through my rugby career. So
well, it seems like he's very well known here in the States. Now you're in New Zealand today.
I am. I'm back. I was in Phoenix last week, and I'm back here in New Zealand at the moment.
So your headquarters for Blackpool is in Phoenix, correct?
Yeah, that's right. We've got pretty much everything over in Phoenix, although we leave the engineering here in New Zealand.
Well, that's great. Now, I happened to talk to Corey Frank the other day, and we were chatting a little bit because I know Corey through another venue, but he was wondering, do you really think that he can start an all-salad diet and lose weight or not?
Well,
is that possible with Corey?
Well, I think that if he could follow that diet, he'd have a better chance for sure. Now, knowing his eating habits and his eating lunch with him and being the good Italian, I believe, Sicilian as well. So, there is a lot of white bread with every meal, and that's going to always do the damage.
Well, he does have that Sicilian look about him, I've noticed. So anyway, now that we've gotten some of the important things out of the way, we want to tackle these 6 ways to make email work smarter. And I've been looking up your company, and I see Blackpool on the internet, and I see Blackpool being, it's on Capterra, and he had good reviews up there. And I look at it on your website. I like what I see, and I like from what I can see in the platform. But I understand that you've got a specialty in talking about these 6 ways to make email work smarter. Now, for people that might wonder how I got hooked up here with Blackpool, is they had a press release on June 12th. Blackpool Mail unveils new Insights module, equips customers with real-time email visibility and customized analytics. So it got my attention through your PR department. And I just thought it's great to have you and Christine Hedge, your PR person, talk to me and got us all enthused about this. So the venue is yours. Tell us your opinion on these 6 ways to make email work smarter for marketing and sales, because God knows we all need it.
Well, firstly, just to qualify, my little niche in email is specifically personalized sort of one-to-one everyday corporate emails. So I'm not so much focused on lead generation drip email or campaign email like you'd send out of MailChimp. I'm about the stuff that you send from your smartphones, your iPhone, and you send every day from Microsoft Outlook, Office 365, G Suite. That kind of email, that's my wheelhouse. To qualify, the main thing that all 6 sort of tips will stem from is simply this: no one likes getting email. We get too much of it. In fact, everyone I speak to will say the same thing, which is if they could click their fingers and halve the amount of email in their inboxes on a daily basis, they would be happy. If you think about that, everything you have to do is actually send less and make more impact. The number one thing to do is actually send less, is send less email. And that sounds a bit counterintuitive, but let me explain. The first thing is that you've got to think you want to limit the amount of inbox overwhelming that you're doing to people. When they get an email from you, it should be read. It needs to be actioned. You need to do everything for that. So if you start having email conversations back and forth, if you start sending irrelevant information, if you start sort of idle chatter and email, you're devaluing your inbox status with that recipient. When you want to make an impact, so there's a really interesting study that we actually had done on us by Microsoft Azure, which is the platform in which we use to send email, or our actual company runs on. And it found that having a little logo at the top of your email when you send it actually increases response rates. So it's people replying to your email or interacting with your email by up to 12%. That blew me away, because if you think about a little logo at the top of your email, well, you don't see it often, but it sort of harks back to letterhead of old. It's sort of like just more of a professionalism look, I would have thought, than actually having any sort of statistical relevance. The interesting thing about that is that those logos on the top left-hand corner actually really do a great job of getting cut through in a busy inbox. So they grab the eye and then you get pulled through from there. So any which way you can get that happening is really important if getting a response to your email is critical.
So it's in the email itself?
Yeah, it's in the email itself. So if you just think of traditional branding on an email has really been restricted to the signature block, down the bottom. So your name, maybe you have a logo there. The reality is about an email is that on business email, there's actually other areas you can insert branding. You can have banner messaging down below. You can have banners up the top. You can have a logo at the top. So the status quo is just a signature block because that's the easiest thing to achieve branding on. The reality is there's other options. And if you can use an option which gets you a logo on the top left-hand corner, well, that really sets you apart from everyone else. And Jim, you'd know from your own inbox that very few emails that you get from individuals, business email from people would have a logo at the top. So it's a great differentiator.
I think it would help a tremendous amount for the salespeople who are trying to follow up with prospects who have inquired, and they can see immediately that this pertains to something I've already looked into from a legitimate company. And I think it's a huge multiplier. Great. What else?
Next thing is I say, look at your email that you're sending in relation to all the email that your company is sending that individual. So, you're talking about 6 ways to work smarter for marketing and sales. And I guess more of the salesperson's journey, which is the personal one-to-one email. Salespeople is often emailing at the tail end or amongst a marketing campaign. If you think about that recipient, they could be getting lead gen emails from your company. They could be getting promotional emails from your company. And then as the salesperson, you come in an email again. Now, it might be the first email you've sent them in a month. but it could be the 9th email they've got from your company in a month. So having that strong coordination between your marketing and sales team and having, using a central source of truth like Marketo or anything like that, where you can keep track of that user journey and those touch points, including your daily corporate email, is really critical, because once again, just like anything, if you're in people's ear too much, they shut off. If you're in people's face too much, they'll shut off. That's an indisputable trend. So the more email that you send to someone, the trend is really clear, the less responses you'll start getting. When we talk about that, then the next thing is, I guess I'm pushing my own barrow here a little bit, but one of the things that I've been really hot on is understanding trends with key people you are emailing, and then emailing a little more strategically around that. And specifically, what I try and figure out, is there a negative or positive trend to the person you're emailing? And I'll give you a great example of this and how I went about using this sort of technique myself, and then how we've sort of gone around making it a little easier. But when at the start of the year, I was trying to recruit Cheryl Presley over as CEO, and Cheryl was a 14 and a bit year veteran at Microsoft, senior director there. So she was a massive acquisition for our company to bring over as CEO, and Cheryl had been on our board prior. And because Cheryl, being at Microsoft and being in the high position she was, got probably 200 or 300 emails a day, there was a big gap in between the amount of time when I'd email Cheryl and I'd get a response, typically about 3 days. And that trend was consistent. So it wasn't going up or down. It was about a 3-day turnaround to get a response from Cheryl. Now, when Cheryl left Microsoft and I started having conversations around her becoming on as CEO, firstly, our chairman, Tim Crown, said, look, Nick, there's no way you're going to get Cheryl on board. It's just not happening. And I said, well, I bet you I can. I'll bet myself to do anything, right? So I started engaging with Cheryl, and something really fascinating happened. If you plotted out the points on a graph of when I emailed Cheryl and when I replied, the gap started getting smaller and smaller. I'd email Cheryl and then I'd get an email that day, and then within an hour. And then over a period of 2 weeks, Cheryl was emailing me far more than I was emailing her. And I caught up with Tim, the chairman, and he said, where'd you get with Cheryl? And I said, she's going to come on board, I can promise you. And he said, well, have you sent any terms? I was like, no, there's no terms. He said, she said she's coming on board? And I said, no, but she's definitely coming on board. And he said, why? And I said, because the trend, I can see how engaged Cheryl is. She is totally engaged, and you can plot that trend over time. So here's a tip, that if you've got people that you really, really genuinely care about building a relationship with, if it's the big sale, take the time to map out the distance and time from when you send an email to when they reply. And if that is increasing in time, you're in trouble. And you got to take some statistical relevance to that. If it's decreasing, that's a really great sign. The next point is, and this comes back to my overarching point, if that trend's going bad, don't start emailing more. Figure out where your email went wrong and then take the time to address that point, so you can come back to that point in time when the trend started going off key.
Wow, that's a lot of information in just a couple of minutes. If we're going to take a quick break here, and I'm going to usurp Paul's authority today to present a commercial product, so we have to earn a little bit here. And today we're spotlighting Black Pearl. Black Pearl Mail integrates with your business email system, so you'll have a consistent delivery and full branding on every email you send, regardless of device or client. With our signature builder, you can upload images to your email and link them to any page you'd like. You'll also get access to analytics, including a track and trace tab, which will tell you who clicked on those emails and when. Don't hesitate to go to blackpearl.com. Paul, I didn't do as good a job as you usually do, but I gave it a try. We're back with Nick Lissette from Black Pearl, and he's partway through our 6 ways to make email work smarter for marketing and sales. And Nick, don't hesitate to talk about your product and how it helps companies, because not everything all the tips that you can give, you can't avoid what Black Pearl does. It's an outstanding product. So don't hesitate. Don't worry about thinking you're pushing your own wheelbarrow. I think that's what you said. I think that's a great image of Nick pushing a wheelbarrow. But let's continue now with our next point. Nick?
Well, firstly, the great thing about being a New Zealander, Jim, is that I can spout all sorts of phrases and sayings like that, and people just take it like that's something that we say here in New Zealand, but often it's something that I've just invented. So I just pass it off as a New Zealand saying. So
so you just nicked it as your own. Okay.
Well, I mean, obviously the reason in founding Black Pearl was simply because of my own personal frustration with the lack of effectiveness of email. I mean, the guy that invented it, Ray Tomlinson, in 1971, he obviously had no idea it was going to become the juggernaut it has today. And from, I guess, a branding and analytics perspective, email hasn't evolved. It hadn't kept up with basic other digital platforms. I mean, look at a website from 15 years ago and how that looks and the kind of analytics you could get on interactions versus one today. And it's night and day difference. And yet email has been this untouched elephant in the room up till now. So, I mean, that was the premise around email, is to make Black Pearl, is to make you email smarter. And that's look smarter. So, sure, we address that up top, branding, formatting from all devices and all that, but it's also around the insights coming that as well. And we'd like to think that we make that a lot easier for people to achieve all these things, but everything I'm talking about, you can do yourself if you really, really want to and want to take the time. It's just $3. It's probably easier getting us to do it. Yeah, because we're cheap labor down here in New Zealand, Jim. So $3 goes a long way.
Oh boy! Now the stories start. Here we go. Continue with our tips here. The first couple really got me intrigued.
So something that I think that's a non-obvious thing for a lot of people is to stop sending information as attachments and send them as links. So a couple of reasons for that. And what I mean by that is obviously if you've got like Google Docs or you're using Office 365, you can have folders and you can share links and access to those folders, right? So typically what happens is when you're wanting to send a proposal, a quote, an invoice, or anything like that, you diligently attach it to the email and you send it through. So once again, once you've done that, you've lost control of that attachment. They can forward it on, they can give it to your competitors, they can do anything with it. If you leave it in a controlled folder where it's a read-only link, well, you've stopped that from being a problem. But the main issue on that is you can actually see when people are interfacing with links. You can see when people go into that folder. You can see when people have clicked it. Obviously, once again, Black Pearl, we've really automated that so you can get a push notification and everything. But even without Black Pearl, you can still use the folder settings to see when people have gone in. And that's super important because you can take sort of advantage of that magic minute, that little bit in time where that recipient amongst the 200 emails they've got in the day has got your email and is actioning what you want them to action, and you can follow up accordingly in that period of time. By removing yourself from link attachments and then putting things in folders and then putting the link in the actual email, rather than a physical attachment, that's a really great way of getting better tracking and analytics control over the information you're sending.
Can they pass this along to show it to other people and you can see those people also?
You can control who they see. Maybe only their email address has access to that folder. Maybe everyone does. There's various ways you can cut it so you can control access and measure who is actually accessing that information. I mean, I personally very, very rarely put something as an attachment in an email anymore. just be out of laziness if I was ever doing that, or because I don't particularly care if the person's going to open it or not, But if I care, I am definitely not sending as an attachment. I'll put it in a folder and send the link.
We've got about 2 minutes left. Was that enough time to give us the last couple of tips?
Well, that worked really well because I think I only really have one tip left anyway. And that's coming back to my last point, quality over quantity. If you're sending an email that's over 150 words, you're in danger zone. Keep it under 150 words and you'll get it read. Anything longer than that can go into the too long to read category.
People just give up on you and close it out.
They've read the first 3 sentences. You see, it's the old glance and swipe left, They glance at it, it's been opened, and they don't come back to revisiting it because it just gets buried in an inbox.
That is really interesting. Before we go, and I'd like to tell everybody how you can be reached, what is the cost for using Black Pearl and using that as a platform, emails for anyone? Is it free?
It is definitely not free. You get I was going to say you get what you pay for, but then we're only I kind of shot myself in the foot there. We're only $3 per user per month. So, you think of it for a standard person, that's $36 a year for having a total record of who's opened your email, who's clicking on your email, beautiful branding, email consistency. And I'm basically just think of it as the AMG to Mercedes. You got a Mercedes-Benz with being Office 365 or G Suite, we're AMG. We give it a full super, better engine, body kit, looks better, operates quicker, sleeker.
Sold. I'm going to sign up, and I'll have a few more people in our company sign up with me. Now, how does someone reach you?
The best way for reaching us through our website, which is www.blackpearlmail.com, and I'll point out that's mail, M-A-I-L, not M-A-L-E. That's a very kind of different Black Pearl site. I wouldn't recommend going to that on your computer. You can get all sorts of trouble with IT.
Now, I've got one more thing to ask you. Will you come back and host a program on SLMA Radio with a subject of your choice in the next month as the host, and you'll have an open microphone to talk about email, your pet peeves, what you'd like to see change, bring a guest on? Can we entice you to do that?
I'd love to, especially because I saw Paul's studio in the background, and he had a really great-looking Kala ukulele bass there. Being a bass player myself, when I see people with cool instruments, you lure me right along. Have a look. Yeah, that's the one, Paul. I love it. So I can do a little bass solo halfway through the whole podcast.
There you go. We'll do a little ukulele jam here.
Yeah, and he's got a sign on his door that says, "Feed the producer, a small batch whiskey, black bananas, and scones." So I don't know who gave that to him. Maybe I know. But I try to feed him on a regular basis.
Just feed the producer and everything's good here.
Yeah.
Imagine how great the podcast will be after we've knocked back a bottle of Hudson small batch.
Ooh, I like that one.
And a bass solo. We'll be humming. I'll look forward to that.
All right, we got a show date
trouble
here.
In River City here. Nick, it's nice to have you on the program. We will set it up through Kristen to have you come on as the host in the next month. And you've been great today. Wonderful tips. Paul, over to you. And we've got CRM Radio starting, don't we, in a few moments?
Yes, sir.
And
absolutely.
after that, Sales Pipeline. And we've got another hour and a half, Asher Sales Strategies and Funnel Radio. And then winding up with a great show today with Road Warriors. So stay tuned, everybody, for the rest of our program. Nick, thank you very much, and say hi to your son for me.
Oh, well, thank you, Jim. See you later.
Thanks. Bye.
You've been listening to another episode of SLMA Radio, brought to you on behalf of the Funnel Radio Network for at-work listeners like you.